Hello, everyone. I'm Lena Stevens with the Power Path, and today we're doing an introductory webinar on our new series, Pivot. And Pivot is a new path to empowerment in work and life. So there are four of us here, and we're each going to introduce ourselves and give you a little bit about our background, especially as it relates to the Pivot series. And then each of us will go through and give you a little bit about each of the sessions that will be part of this very experiential webinar. So my background is that I'm a co-founder of PowerPath along with Jose. And many years ago, in a past life, when I lived in California, I was in management. And I loved it. I loved working with people. I loved doing the organization. I loved getting people to be very successful in whatever that they were doing, whatever their roles were. So I implemented a lot of shamanic principles as well as intuitive skills so that, you know, the companies and the staff that I was managing would be as successful as they possibly could. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth. And then, of course, many of you know that PowerPath has been in existence for more than 30 years. And we've been very successful in bringing communities together and having great ideas of what to teach and, you know, implementing those. So that's what I bring to the table. And I wanted to share with you first a little bit about the series Pivot. It's going to be 4 webinars, and it's not just, okay, so you take the webinar and here's the information, but it will be very interactive because we're going to provide you with materials so that you can really work with the concepts that we're teaching in between each of the sessions. So I'm going to introduce right now the first session, and it's all about community. And often when we hear the word community, we think in a very limited way about the people that are around us, that live in our town or, you know, our work community, perhaps our family. But community is so much more than that. And community is a very, very important part of how you manifest and what your support system is and how you network. And a concept that really a lot of people don't recognize is that you have an internal community, which is just as important as your external community. You have, you know, your physical community, which is your physical body and all the elements that go into it and how they relate to each other. You have your emotional internal community, you have your mental internal community, and your spiritual internal community. And those have to be in balance, and they have to be able to interact with your outer community, which is made up of many, many different aspects. And of course, that all depends on where you are in your life and what your project is, what your endeavor is, what your business is, or what your community group is. So communities also go through a growth pattern, and we're going to focus a lot on that because I'll give you just an example of an aspect of the growth pattern that many people feel is something alien or something that is trying to disrupt their progress. You know, there's something called crisis. And when crisis happens, that is actually a part of the important part of the growth pattern. And often when crisis happens in a community or in your business or in your life, you're very quick to blame. You know, you're always looking for something to blame. A group of staff, perhaps a business staff, is always trying to blame, or perhaps a CEO is trying to blame something externally for that crisis that's happened, instead of being proactive and really embracing the tools that we're going to teach you to take that crisis step that in that growth pattern and move it in a positive direction so that you can always be evolving towards your goal. So the other aspects of community, we have a lot of different things to teach you about community that will help to create, first of all, balance, and will help to create a path towards, you know, very, very successful goals. Everybody has a goal. There's nobody out there that doesn't have any goals. Maybe there's a few of you, but everybody has intentions. Everybody has desires. Everybody wants to improve. So we're, in shamanism, there's such thing called maps. And that's why I love shamanism, because there's a lot of maps. And this is a really good map that we're going to be teaching you in all of the 4 different sessions. You're going to get tools, you're going to get maps, and you're going to be able to move forward in your life in whatever endeavor you have, whether it's business, whether it's your family, and just whether it's, you're an artist and you just want to be more successful and you want to be participatory and you want to show up. Everyone has a life task, everybody's got their medicine, and so this is a program that is designed to help you create a container for that to be manifest in the world. So I'm going to now introduce Jose, who's going to talk about, who's going to introduce himself and then as well talk about the second session of this webinar series.
So hello, everybody. I'm Jose Stevens, and I'm one of the founders of the Power Path. And I have a background as a psychotherapist. I've been a psychotherapist for about 50 years now. And in addition to that, I've done many trainings and was a university professor for 8 years, and I've worked with a lot of businesses, done countless webinars and retreats and seminars, and all these things having to do actually with communication. I actually worked with a lot of businesses in the course of my work. I didn't start out that way. I didn't go to business school or anything myself, but in the course of my work, I've run into a lot of people that found what I was teaching them valuable, and they invited me to come and work with their law firms or their medical practices, or sometimes even big companies like I flew to Finland and worked with Nokia a number of years ago. And so my work has taken me all over the place. And a huge part of that work has to do with communication. And mostly what I've learned about communication has been from actually making personal mistakes and watching other people make mistakes when they communicate. And so that's such a big part of our experience as human beings, because we're social creatures. And so being social with one another requires communication. That's how we get along with each other. And sometimes the reason communication is also responsible for sometimes the way we not get along with people. So we have a lot to say about communication. And in some ways, unfortunately, we don't know that much about communication, even though it's the main thing we do every day. And that leads to unfortunate results. So we're going to concentrate on, like Lena was saying, a particular map of communication. As human beings, we're biological radios. We receive information all the time. And there are so many ways to receive that information. We have ears, we listen, but we also receive information downloading it from various sources. The cells of our bodies are always receiving information subliminally. And so it goes in, it processes, we add to it through our creativity and through our learning and understanding, and then we express. We tell other people what we know or learn, and that's what we call communication. The ways that we communicate are actually so many that many of them are beyond our understanding. For example, most schools don't include the fact that a major part of our communication is nonverbal, non-physical. It's what you could call telepathic. It's not even believed in by a lot of people, but actually science has proved that we communicate telepathically with others over long distances or in the next room or what have you. And these are all important parts of our communication. We're going to use this map that specifically zeroes in on the different communication styles that people use. And one of those styles is we could call it the head. Another one of the styles, we could call it the heart, and the other, we could call it the gut or kinesthetic. Kinesthetic, emotional, and intellectual. All of us have these centers. We use them, all of us use them, but usually we have one that we rely on the most, and it's our favorite, it's our go-to. And so we could say we're more intellectually centered or more emotionally centered or more kinesthetically centered or moving centered. And these are quite different from one another, and they account for great misunderstandings between people. They don't understand that there's different ways of communicating. And if they did understand that, they would be much more able to bridge the gaps, bridge with other people in ways that would be like non-critical and non-judgmental and non-attacking and all that. So we can use our centers in positive ways or in negative ways. And of course, the goal is to learn how to use our communication talents and skills and abilities in positive ways. An example of positive ways would be that we bridge with other people, we reach out to other people to connect with them. And connection is really what we're all about. That's our social aspect, is that we want to connect with others. And yet we can use communication sometimes to disconnect from people. And sometimes that's appropriate, but a lot of times that's a very negative experience, and it is usually generated by fear. And if you communicate from fear, then you're generating more fear and so on. So we'll get into all that in much greater detail. And I'm going to now introduce Steve Vera, who's going to talk to you about another aspect of the program.
Well, thank you, Jose, and good morning, everybody. Really happy to be here, and so glad that you could join us for this webinar series introduction. I, for the past 20 years, have had a background in my career centered around entrepreneurship and sales and human resources and the psychology that is involved in those particular things. My most recent endeavor was co-founding a company called Skill Set Group, in which I also was the chief operating officer, basically taking this business from ground zero to $75 million in revenue, 1,500 employees, and 6 offices across the Southwest region. Within the last year and a half, I was able to negotiate a deal in which I was able to exit the company. And this really was a real blessing for me and allowed me the opportunity to create time and space like I've never had before, which is actually really great timing because my wife and I had a son right around the time I was leaving. And so I've been able to spend a lot more time at home with him and find a new way to work with balance in that way. So if my eyes are a little beady and I seem to be nodding off at times, just know that I'm working on very little sleep. Today, my focus is really around investing in consulting, but more importantly, around raising a family. I've had the opportunity to study with the Power Path for over a decade, and I've had the privilege to learn at an in-depth level how to work with ancient wisdom traditions that these principles that we're teaching are based on, and how to apply that directly to my life and how I operate on a day-to-day basis. And I can't begin to tell you all the ways that it's benefited my life and my success. And so I'm really passionate about getting the opportunity to be able to share that with you as well. I believe that the assets that I bring to the table are focused around a really strong foundation in pragmatic leadership and diplomacy. In the upcoming webinar number 3, we're going to focus on the topic of balance, and we will explore the concept of balance in your personal and work life, emphasizing the importance of integrating the active and receptive aspects of our human nature. Everyone possesses these two sides. The active side inclined more towards mental analysis and problem solving, whereas the receptive side leans more towards emotional connection and nurturing. When these two aspects are in balance, we experience a sense of wholeness and functionality. But when one side is emphasized over the other, there can be an imbalance and a dysfunction. So we'll get into that a little more deeply and how that applies to your specific life and situation. We'll also peer into balance as it relates to nature and how we can learn from balance that's achieved by the natural cycles that are around us all the time. And thirdly, we'll get into the 4 aspects that support balance and identify how learning, service, relaxation, and fun can relate to or basically create sustainable balance in your life, whether that be your work situation or your life. We hope to address how identifying and balancing these aspects can lead to a healthier and more successful personal life and or work life, as I mentioned. We plan to touch on practical strategies in this webinar series. We're really trying to focus on actionable insights and provide or help you to apply these into your daily routine. It's our goal to provide you with like a clear understanding on how to implement these strategies, and we really hope that our extensive experience and practical approach to utilizing shamanic principles in the context of modern challenges, in my opinion, especially, make this webinar a really great opportunity to find ways to achieve a balance necessary for your overall well-being and your success. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dave McCormick, who is going to give you a little bit about his background and also introduce the topic for the 4th session in this webinar series. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Well, good morning, everyone. And unlike Steve, I'm not sleep deprived. So that's a good thing. And I'm looking forward to really being here with all of you. I'm Dave McCormick, and let me share with you a little bit about my background before we get into a discussion on the final webinar series number 4. So I've spent almost 40 years working in global business and had leadership roles for major corporations such as the sales director with Quaker Oats to vice president with Bayer Corporation, who's the maker of Bayer aspirin. Well, I'm sure most of you know that brand. I've also had the opportunity to have lead roles in different organizations, be it management, marketing, sales, and even production. And throughout my career, I've also had the opportunity to own and grow my own business and bring it to the point where we were able to sell that business to a larger organization. So I've taken all these skills and thought about everything that I've done in the past, and now I'm moving into a role of business consulting and coaching. And so I'm really excited to join you guys here today. Beyond my corporate career, there's a couple of things that I've done. I've studied extensively with the Power Path for over a decade, and I'm also the current board member and treasurer for the Society for Shamanic Practice. And both of those organizations have really given me a new perspective on leadership, on engaged community, and then taking all of what I've learned and really applying it to my life. And so it's really been very, very, very beneficial for me. I was drawn to this work, and you're going to hear this a lot as we talk through the different webinar series. You're going to hear a lot about a roadmap or a framework. And I think all of these concepts really, when put together and applied, can really create a better opportunity for success. And whether it's work related, whether you've got a startup project that you're working on, or even your personal life, all of these concepts can benefit you for that. So I'm looking forward to taking this journey with you guys. So our fourth webinar series, and this will be the final webinar series or webinar that we will have in the installment, we're going to touch upon strategies for success. So within that concept exists really three major themes that we're going to touch upon and expand upon. One of those is empowerment. The second one is vitality. And the third is community working configurations. Through all of my experiences, I've seen that we're in a place where the old traditional paradigm of the hierarchical structure is no longer valuable. It doesn't work the way it should, and there continues to be breakdowns in that process. So we're wanting to embrace a new way, a new paradigm, one that's more participatory and where you will have an opportunity to be valued and respected, whether that's in your community, whether that's at your place of work, or whether that's within your whole family configuration. And so empowerment, we'll look at where it comes from. We're going to define it, and then we're going to apply that to the community as a whole, and how we use that, and how we embrace that concept. One of the other concepts we're going to talk about is vitality. Now, vitality is the lifeblood of every community, and it really stimulates excitement, resilience, and inspiration. And if you don't have vitality, the community can't function properly. And so we're going to take a look at how vitality, where its sources from, how you can gain it. And also we're going to address some areas where maybe you have some possible energy leaks and something that would drain the vitality of your community. And then the last topic we're going to talk about, it'll be a little more detailed than the other two. We're going to touch upon community working configurations. Now, a group of people come together with a common goal, and within the community working configurations, we're going to call it a quadrant. And within the quadrant, there are different placements or roles: creation, knowledge, power, and support. So let me give you a recent example that I ran across in my consulting business. I was contacted by a CEO of a startup company who wanted to bring a product to market. And when I spoke with him, he said, we're really having an issue. We've come to this place where we're stuck. And he introduced me to the two other individuals that were working with him in this organization. And we had many discussions. We talked about, what's your goal? What's your insights? How do you want to bring this to market? Where do you feel like your stumbling blocks are? What I recognized through the process is we gravitated naturally towards one of these four quadrants. And once that fourth quadrant was filled, then all of a sudden the organization gained momentum and it moved forward, and things started to unfold and happen for them. In fact, we're right now in test market with three organizations in the country, three supermarket chains doing some tests. One of those is Sprouts, which you probably shop at in your local area. The other thing that we're really close to coming to an agreement on is working with the U.S. government, which should be about a $50 million opportunity for this new startup company. So when I talk about that situation, basically what I'm saying is that I've seen how pulling these quadrants together, it really adds a cohesive place where you can begin to really experience the principles and the concepts that we're talking about. And it really provided a means forward and a way to success. And then throughout all of the series that we're going to give you and provide you, you're going to get exercises, you're going to get different examples. We're going to have the opportunity to have you work through your individual situations and see how that may help you to move through to a different place than maybe you were before. And so it'll be really exciting to be able to go through these different and explore these different concepts with you.